Hey, ladies, you know I always like to bring you opportunities to make more money, give you more ideas, and I am going to put on uh, this YouTube page a interview that I did with a woman named Joy Wright. She is a sales recruiter. She's specifically a tech sales recruiter, but we talk not only about tech sales, about 70% of our conversation is about tech sales, but then she also talks about other types of sales as well. She talks about how to get a sales job, the good, the bad, the hard work that it takes within sales, but the fact that there are salespeople making up to $1 million a year and even more than that. And unlike the typical type of job where you're capped at 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000 or 125,000, the reason I like sales is because you can really have unlimited income. It's based on the the product that you're representing, your commission structure, and how much effort you put into it. So a couple of things I wanted to share before I actually toss you over to the initial interview that I did is that my new job is a sales job. I've been an entrepreneur full time for 15 years, but I kind of got tired of handling everything. And I was offered an opportunity to just lead a division of a company, set it up, and 90% of my job is going to be sales. 10% of it is going to be management and administrative stuff. Right now, over time, I'll be more management, sales management. But I really like it because the good thing is I don't have any cash outlay for this type of business. I can make unlimited income over time. I expect to do extremely well if this works out. The only bad part is it's of course not my business, meaning that if the entrepreneur decides to sell it, I might get some shares in it. I'm going to negotiate that in the business, but ultimately it's not my business, but that's okay. I'm going to take my commission and I'm going to actually invest it in tax liens and real estate and stock and other things, and try to live a little bit more of a carefree life. That's a little less responsibility is what I'm looking for right now. So another thing is I spoke with a woman earlier today. She's looking for a salesperson. She's got leads coming in and she just needs somebody to convert them for her podcast, people who want to do brand partnerships with her and things like that. So salespeople are needed all over the place. It's something you can do full time. You could do it part time. You could be an independent contractor. A lot of sales jobs you can do from home. They can work around your kid's schedule, things like that. So, with that, this is the interview I did with Joy White. She calls herself Joyful Recruiter. I'm also in the description going to put her LinkedIn as well. So you're able to reach out to her, tell her Cherie sent you. And, let's network, ladies. We also talked about later on in the interview a couple of organizations that she belongs to. Networking is absolutely the best way for you to get these jobs. And these opportunities. So with that, enjoy the interview. Record this. Hey everybody, welcome to a special session of the 10K Project. You all know that we do a lot of sessions around making money, managing your money, multiplying your money, and preserving your wealth. And we're all about generational wealth here at the 10K Project. I often tell people that there are a few different categories, including the trades and healthcare, accounting and taxes, tech for you to make money. But one area that people typically don't think about is sales. And a lot of times we think, oh, the sleazy car salesperson. Well, first of all, don't sleep on car salespeople because good ones make $250,000 a year. Okay. However, sales is like it is the one job that every business has is salespeople. And I am here with a recruiter, Joy. She is
Joy White, aka the Joyful Recruiter. She is an experienced sales and talent acquisition professional who has worked as an in-house and recruitment process outsourcing recruiter. She has successfully recruited sales professionals for medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, life science companies, supply chain and logistics, and tech industries, just to name a few. She started her career recruiting people to help change people's lives for the better. And she is passionate about recruiting salespeople. She guides and empowers them to succeed through the interview process. She has a Bachelor's of Science degree, which she got in 2019, and she majored in business management. And for all my West Coast people, she is a Los Angeles native. She's currently the senior enterprise sales recruiter at a global tech company that provides a software intelligence platform based on artificial intelligence and automation. And you all know how I am about my robots. So she is right at home with me. So everybody throw an exclamation point in really quickly to chat for Joy here. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
So why don't we start from the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about sales overall as a potential opportunity, especially for Black people? Do you have to have a degree in it? Is it something that anybody can do? What are some of the career opportunities that are out there? I'm just going to toss out a whole bunch of questions for you to answer tonight.
Oh, that's great. So I'll start by saying or answering the question, can anyone be a salesperson? That is a yes and no answer. And why I say that? Yes, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit,
Mm.
if you are bold, if you are tenacious, if you have a fire in your belly, if you're very competitive, absolutely. But if you are passive, you're kind of shy, if you like to just kind of sit in the background, if you like to just collect a paycheck and go home,
Mm.
then sales might not really be for you. But if you really want to make your own paycheck and the sky's the limit, and you don't want to spend years in law school or medical school or whatever that may be, sales is the way to get there. Now, the question is, do you need a college degree? That's another yes and no answer. Certain industries will really want you to have a college degree. Now, those industries, at least I know a few years ago, those were in the pharmaceutical industry or medical device or life sciences. But what I'm noticing, a lot of those mentalities are shifting where people are willing to take a chance because a lot of times people get into sales and it comes natural to them.
Mhm.
Now, as you get further up in sales, if you are, let's say, looking to make six figures and you're trying to work in elevated industries, sometimes certain managers feel that you need a college degree because you need certain types of, let's say, business acumen
Mm.
or EQ and emotional intelligence. And this is what I'll say about my mentality about that. I'm an advocate for education. However, a degree is not the end all and be all.
Mhm.
And I will tell you a personal story. I have a very non-traditional education. I am a recruiter, therefore I am a salesperson.
Mhm.
Um, I started in recruiting long before I completed my education. I feel that I'm an exceptional recruiter. I've had my degree for almost 3 years now. I was a great recruiter before I received my degree. I'm still a great recruiter. Am I
Mhm.
glad I got the degree? Absolutely. It's opened certain doors for me. But you know, I think some mentalities are changing. The company I work for right now, they don't require a degree for sales positions that will pay you six figures. So it just really depends on the.
Fantastic. So I know that you've worked with a lot of different industries. Talk to us about some of the differences of the industries. Like, how does a person even know, you know, if they're curious about getting into sales, what kind of research should they start with? How do they even know if it would be something that they would even want to do?
Sure. So I'll start with the pharma, medical device, life sciences. So a
Mhm.
lot of times people will get in that or those industries. Let's say you go to college and you study kinesiology, or you study biology, and maybe you are pre-med, but you realize that's really not the direction you want to go into, or
Mhm.
maybe you're just doing that because your parents expected that of you. You still want to work in that field, but you really don't see yourself going all the way. And this is just an example. So a
Mhm.
lot of times those companies will recruit recent grads, or while a person is still in school, to get into what's called an inside sales type of role. But that's not necessarily the path you have to take. A lot of times I know someone, actually a family member, who got into beverage sales in right after college. She was in retail during her college years. She got into beverage sales. She
Mhm.
got into management, but she knew that wasn't where she wanted to be. And now she works in medical sales. I've worked in industrial or recruited industrial sales and supply chain and logistics. Um, it just really depends. If you're looking to get into tech, a lot of times there are roles called BDRs. Those are business development reps. Now,
Mhm.
typically, even though you don't need a degree, but typically they look for those who are recent college grads. Do you have to have a degree to get a role like that? Yes and no. Um, I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes it's who you know. And that's why networking is very important.
Yeah.
But this is what I'll tell anybody. If you are tenacious, you need to go for what you want to go for. Research those industries, start
Mhm.
connecting with recruiters. And, I want to stay on track with this, so I'm not going to go on a tangent at all.
You
But
can go on a tangent, that's fine.
well, what I'll just say is, if there's an industry you're very interested in, like tech, for example, I personally will say more Black people need to be in tech, and that's something I'm so passionate about. And I am technically new to tech, but I am not new to sales recruiting. And if I
Mhm.
can get more people who look like me in these roles, men and women of color and Black and brown people in these roles, I think it starts early. It has to start early in the career, and you have to be very proactive in getting into these fields, because a lot of times it can be a boys' club, whether that's intentional or unintentional. And you have to put yourself in those spaces. So I would say, if you are a salesperson or you want to be in sales, it starts by selling yourself. You have to sell yourself. You are your advocate.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I would encourage. But a lot of times, traditionally, it is getting into those internships. It is getting into those entry level roles. And I see someone is asking, can you
Yes.
switch? Absolutely. A lot of companies will. That's the best way. If you already have that technical knowledge, but you also have that entrepreneurial spirit, you really see yourself being in sales, Yes, absolutely. Pivot. Definitely pivot.
Yeah, and I mean, sales engineering is a huge, they actually, from my understanding, they start off higher on the pay scale because you are able to speak to the CIOs and do the technical jargon as well as the sales piece of it. The commission structures are great. You're usually selling more complex
Mm.
solutions. So Latoya, you are in a great position. And I'm going to assume you're a Black female. Like Joy is saying, these companies are looking for us. They are looking for us. They're looking for more diversity. Now, I will add in there, I have been offered 2 business development jobs, and it is because I was networking and the people liked me. And they're like, come on. They didn't ask me degree the first, even though I have 2. They didn't ask me, like any kind of background questions. They were like, you're smart, you're good, come on, come sit down with us and let's talk about you coming on board. So my favorite way of getting a job in sales would be to go and network.
Mhm.
Go to conferences, go to meetups in your local area, let people know you're looking for a business development or sales position. You know, if people vibe with you and they like you, you might get past Joy and get right to the hiring manager who's like, I'm desperate. I really need some good people to come and join my team. So, Joy could disagree with me if she wants. That's perfectly okay. But yeah, so I wanted you to talk a little bit about flexibility. So you mentioned like having an entrepreneurial spirit. I've been
Mhm.
an entrepreneur full time for 15 years now. So
Congratulations.
yes.
That's impressive.
So the flexibility is a plus and a minus though, because you can kind of come in and leave and, excuse me, you work weekends and things like that. I'm curious to know a little bit about different types of sales jobs that are out there and the flexibility, the hours. Some people, they want to work from home,
Mhm.
they have kids and, there are
Sure.
certain things that they're trying to do with their families. So yeah, walk us a little bit through that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sharice. So this is what I will say. As horrible as the pandemic has been for a lot of us, one of the few positives to come out of it is more work-life balance and understanding that remote work is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and that people are demanding it. And so what I am finding is that more companies are allowing their salespeople, because long before, I'm going to say back in the 2010s or even before that, I've been recruiting longer than I care to even say. And it was like, oh, companies expected people to work 50, 60 hours. That's not happening as much anymore. And people are starting to understand. And when I say people, I mean these companies are understanding that, and we're going to take gender out of it because I think men are as hands on with parenting as women are in some cases. And a lot of people expect to be able to spend time participating in their children's extracurricular activities and being there and being able to do certain things. I've noticed just in the last 2 sales recruiting roles I've had that a lot of times these salespeople, they are starting their days at 8 o'clock and they are ending their days around 5 or 6. Now, of course, there are certain variables, but I have observed there's a lot more emphasis on work-life balance. Um, when you get to certain industries, you're not working weekends. Now, if you go into a sales environment, let's say it is consumer products, let's say residential, you're selling security systems or alarm systems. That was actually the first industry I ever recruited salespeople in. I would think just because of the nature of the business, because people are at home on weekends, you might still have to work weekends. That is an industry, it might be a good start for some. And I'm not going to say anything negative about that industry because everyone needs to start somewhere. And that industry has been extremely beneficial for a lot of people, certain people from underrepresented backgrounds who've been able to do a lot of positive things for their families and elevate their families financially. But there's not a ton of work-life balance in those type of industries. But if we're talking tech, if we're talking SaaS, or if you're selling SaaS, I should say, I've noticed that there is that demand. It's like, I'm done at 6, I'm done at 7, or whatever the case may be. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Talk to us a little bit about some of the horror stories you hear when it comes to vetting companies and, small companies, for example, sometimes if they're startups, they, run out of cash and capital, or, big companies, sometimes you kind of get lost in the sauce. you know, so Latoya saying you said SaaS, yes, software as a
Yeah,
service. Yes, she
yeah.
did say SaaS.
Yes. Software as a service.
So talk to us a little bit about, let's say, yeah, I'm sold. Joy has sold me. I'm going to get into the sales industry. What are some of the questions that I need to ask as I'm thinking about looking for a job, considering employers, considering products to represent, etc.?
So one thing I would say is important, because anytime you're interviewing, the recruiter and the sales manager is always going to tell you, well, and it depends on the industry, but I'll use an example of a certain company I work for. We would always, there was a base, but we would always sell them on the OTE, how much they can earn. So a lot of times it's like, well, first year reps they make X amount of dollars, and our top reps are making this amount of money. And it sounds great because we're explaining that these amounts are obtainable. But I would say a question someone should ask, okay, how many people on the team are actually reaching quota? How many people are actually attending President's Club in this particular region or in this particular department, or who reports to you? Because it is important to know if these goals or these quotas are obtainable, especially if you are in a sales role where you are looking for all net new logos. You are a hunter looking for a new business. So it's very important to know if you can achieve, if it is achievable, because if a market is overly saturated, you might not be able to. It depends where you are. If you're in a big city, sure, there's going to be tons of business. If you're in a small town, maybe not. So I think those types of questions are very important. In general, I'll just say this is important for anybody who's interviewing. You need to find out what your manager's style is. What are those expectations? I always say, what does success look like in this environment? What are some of the challenges I'm going to face? What is your style of management? Because you need to know that going in. And I would recommend, if you're getting far in the interview process, definitely ask to talk to one of the sales reps. That should be someone who has been in that position for a few years. It doesn't have to be the top salesperson, which they're always going to try to have you talk to the top salesperson because that person's going to put, a great face on everything. But you definitely want to talk to someone who's been in the role for a few years and who's not going to sugarcoat it and just give you the real deal of what's going on in that environment.
Yeah, so I spoke with quite a few salespeople a few years ago for a research project that I was doing. I'll tell you a couple of horror stories that I heard, and I'm only saying this not to scare you from sales, but to have you be super cautious about the companies you represent. So, one woman I spoke with, unfortunately, she was an immigrant and she didn't have all of her documents. And she did sales for this company, and they did not pay her for 7 months, even though she was actively selling and actively reaching quota. Another gentleman that I spoke with, now he was a little bit more seasoned in sales. He was making $500,000 a year. He started going after bigger accounts, bigger companies, and he brought in Coca-Cola to do business with their mid-sized company. Coca-Cola was ready to sign on the dotted line. And after they went through all the proposals and everything, the senior people at his company that he represented said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't service them. They're too big."
Yes.
So he spent 2 years, wasted all of that time and effort bringing in what they call a whale in the industry just for the mid-sized company. This wasn't a small company. This is a mid-sized company, a few hundred million a year, to say, "I'm sorry, we can't service this Fortune 500 company." So one of the things that I've learned from talking to some of the individuals is like really asking, what is the capacity of this company? Because you could make quota, and if they can't service the business, especially if they're a service company, or even these days with some of the supply chain issues, like you don't want to make quota and then have people angry and charging back because your company is not able to actually deliver on what you've sold.
I'm
So
so
that's just a
glad
couple of
you,
things.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because actually that's important because I've had candidates tell me that's why they are looking for something new because that, yes, that
It's true.
happens frequently and in startup environments too. And you have to be careful. I'm not here to say anything negative about startups because a lot of startups are great places to start a career. But if they run out of funding, if they, as you mentioned, they don't have the resources to service a client, like you said, you may capture that well, but if you can't service them, then yes, there's no point. So those are questions you have to ask. And sometimes, unfortunately, they might sell you in the interview process and put a nice attractive bow on it. But you may not know going in. And I just want to add this. Of course, like anything, you have to be objective, but I encourage people to read Glassdoor reviews because a lot of times I have observed a lot of those reviews are accurate. I've read them at companies where I've worked for, like, yep, the company I spent almost 10 years at, I would read the Glassdoor reviews. I'm like, this is all true. It mirrors my experience here. The last company I worked at, same. There's a lot of positives, but some of the things that were negatives, I'm like, that is correct. And before I accepted the role in my the current company I work for, I asked questions, and some of the questions were around DE&I. And I asked questions about that because, looking at me, I think it's my responsibility to ask those type of questions. But
Right.
yeah, I would say read Glassdoor reviews and, use your own judgment. But
Mhm.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I do too. So let's pivot a little bit. Positive stuff now. Let's talk about having a long-term career in sales. You know, a you can let me know what you think about the numbers, but a decent salesperson can make six figures, like 100,000, 150,000. A good salesperson can make 250,000. A great salesperson can make 500,000 up. I know a guy, he probably still does, makes $1 million a year at a very large company.
Mhm.
And he does business development and proposals for this very large company. So, the opportunities financially are very good. But in
Mhm.
order to do that, you need to have a long-term perspective and think about this as a career, training, things like that. So I'm tossing a lot at you, but like, what are some of the things that people need to think about? Because being a salesperson is a professional, career in a professional industry that you're doing. How does somebody, you know,
So this,
navigate that?
yeah, so this is what I'll say. There are so many different paths. So I can talk about what I have observed in the industries that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So what I observed is you have to decide which industry that you want to get into. And a lot of times people get into industries that they are interested in or that they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mean, yes, money is a great motivator. I love salespeople who tell me, hey, I'm in it for the money. Good, because you're probably going to work really hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it is also important to be passionate about the product or service or solution that you're selling. So first,
Mhm.
you have to think about, what do I want to sell? What industry appeals to me? Then you have to think about, okay, how much can I make working in this industry?
Mhm.
And what type? So a lot of times, and I'll use this as an example. So a lot of times when people are starting out in sales, and this is early on, they might start in inside sales or as a BDR, or they might start in small business. And that's to get their foot in the door.
Mhm.
And then they move up to mid-size, and then they get to enterprise. And if that's your goal, then that's where you need to go. You need to keep pivoting. Now, sometimes you can do that within the same organization because they provide that variety. Some organizations, you get pigeonholed, and you might only be able to grow within, let's say, inside sales. And if you want to pivot, let's say, into enterprise, you need to go somewhere else. So first and foremost, I would say you have to be intentional about what you want in sales or any career path. I don't think anyone should have that mentality. Oh, I just kind of fell into this and that's where I am. You have to be intentional. Like, for example, today we had a team meeting, and we always have a guest speaker every other week. And one of the guest speakers is one of our enterprise sales people or account executives, who he is unique because he actually started in an entry level role. And one thing he said that I love, he said the reason why he sees himself being an individual contributor for now, or at least for the next few years, because yes, he is working for the company, but this is his own business and he treats it like his own business. He is an entrepreneur. And so you have to understand that this is your own business. You're treating it that way. Yes, you're representing the company you work for and they're writing your checks, but you have to be extremely methodical about how you navigate your career and where you see yourself, because you're not just going to get there by happenstance. So that's the advice I would give anyone. Do your research, read the material. You know, there's a lot of material out there to Challenger. And you know, there's information also. I know Cynthia Barnes, I believe that's her name. She's written a book that actually I've been reading, and it's an easy read, but it's for specifically for women and for women of color too. But that's the advice I would give anyone, and I can elaborate if you like me to.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about a few things. Number one is you mentioned inside sales, enterprise sales, BDR. Some people may not know these
Sure.
terms. So if
Sure.
you wouldn't, yeah, if you would break down.
Yeah, so usually, typically, a business development rep or a sales rep is someone who is typically cold calling or using various quote unquote cold calling tools. And this might not necessarily mean picking up the phone and making 100 calls per day, but it might mean emailing, using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Zoom Info, and you are composing emails where you are contacting the appropriate decision maker. So your account executive who you are assigned to can, let's say, do a demo if this person is interested. So the BDR, business development rep, they are responsible for lead generation and providing those leads to the account executive, even though the account executive might still be responsible for getting their own business. Now, not all companies have BDRs. But this is a great way for someone. Now, typically it is someone who is fresh out of college. Doesn't always have to be. Sometimes it is someone who is looking to change industries or just get their foot in the door too. But that's a great way to learn an industry, learn a business, learn a company. As far as inside sales, depending on how the company is structured, that it could be just you're on the phones all day, or maybe you are emailing and you're not meeting customers face to face. You might, nowadays, it might not even be over the phone. It might be through Zoom. But you're not meeting clients face to face. And so sometimes there's only so far an inside salesperson can go. I've seen inside sales people pivot into account executive roles, territory sales manager roles, outside sales roles, depending on what the company calls it. I've also seen salespeople get into recruiting. But that's a whole different story. We could do. You could also be a salesperson in recruiting if you work the agency route. But like I said, that's a different story. In regards to SMB, that means small business. You're usually catering to mom and pop. So let's say, oh, this is a good example, Yelp. So Yelp salespeople, they are hunters because they are pursuing small businesses within a certain region. Typically, they don't see anyone face to face. They're just on the phone, or they're literally calling businesses and trying to get them to participate in the paid advertising on Yelp. And it's not just restaurants, it's all types of businesses.
Google Ads is another one. They call me all the time.
Thank you. Yes. So that, but and you can work your way up to Yelp, but I don't want to go on a tangent about that. So then
Yelp doesn't necessarily have the best reputation, so
they don't, honestly. But you know what? I will say this: that is a great place for someone. Go there, work there for 2 to 3 years, and get out, because that's a place where you can get into other industries. Just a tip.
Okay, I like that, an inside tip.
Yeah.
Yes.
So mid-market, that's going to be like it indicates your mid-sized businesses. And
Mhm.
then when we're talking enterprise, that's your huge, like today, for example, the person who is in our meeting, he said he has a pending deal. Um, well, I probably shouldn't say the name of the company, so I'll pick another company, Procter and Gamble.
Okay.
So that's not the company, but it's that would be considered enterprise, or Victoria's Secrets,
Right.
the
It's
limit,
large
yeah,
companies.
large.
Yeah. I mean,
So
people work their way up to enterprise sales and it's very prestigious and
exactly.
so like all sorts of companies have enterprise sales, even companies you wouldn't think have enterprise sales, like LinkedIn, they have
Yes.
a huge enterprise sales department. Google, places like Amazon. I was looking at some job descriptions and Amazon even has they have a salesperson position, business development manager for somebody that can get into private equity firms. So
Mm,
like sometimes you'll even have like this is the company you're working for, but this is the industry we want you to target. And your responsibility is to penetrate that industry. Or sometimes they'll say, hey, we want somebody who's able to go after new logos. New
yes.
logos are just, like adding new accounts, right?
Mm,
But if you've ever looked at some of the websites, you'll see, our product is used by, and you'll look and you'll see like the Microsoft logo and Google and things like that. Like there's somebody who goes in, and pursues those accounts. So that way that mid-sized or small company is able to put those logos on their website. And
exactly.
depending on, the type of commission structure they have and how long the person stays, how long the company stays on the product and things like that, you can do very well.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and
Go
I
ahead.
think it's important to just mention too, because a lot of people, account executives, account managers now, titles are very fluid, but I will say this, there's two types of sales. There's the hunters and the farmers.
Hmm.
A lot of times account executives are considered the hunters because they're going out and getting, as Cherie said, the new logos. Your account managers are more the farmers.
Hmm.
They are the ones managing the accounts and upselling and just making sure these clients who are already established have what they need. And sometimes that's the case with territory sales managers, for example, in medical device or industrial sales. I used to recruit a lot in that industry too. So you're not really necessarily looking for a lot of new business, some new business, but you're constantly going back to those accounts you already have and selling them more products and things like that. Just same goes with doctors and things like that. You're selling, pharma. So just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, I think that, um, it's important to kind of know that there's a lot of options out
Mhm.
there.
Exactly.
And, do more research. I'm going to talk to Joy about some of the things that you may want to research, information, books, videos, things like that. But this is definitely an industry that I suggest to people because one of the things that I've been talking to just various people about is that we there was a McKinsey report that said that over 4 million Black people are going to lose their jobs to automation. And
Mm,
this was stated before the pandemic in 2018, 2019. They had predicted it for 2030, but that timeline is accelerated. You all within the 10K project know how I am about my robots. The robots are coming. So if you have certain types of jobs, you are going to be pushed out. And this is an option for some of you to consider. So, we just again want to make sure that you have the options out there in order to be able to make great money and support your families. So, a couple of final questions for you, Joy, here as we wrap up. Um, you are a recruiter and you probably spend the majority of your day strolling LinkedIn.
I do.
Tell, tell us a little bit about how somebody sets up their LinkedIn and ultimately their resume to even catch your eye as a recruiter.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, sometimes it's organically, but one thing that LinkedIn has done, which I have to say is very smart of them. So LinkedIn knew that most of the people that are on LinkedIn are recruiters and salespeople. Of course, they're HR people, but really recruiters and salespeople. So
Mhm.
LinkedIn decided to monetize on that. It's extremely smart. So there are two things that they have: LinkedIn Recruiter and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, I use LinkedIn Recruiter um, because I solely recruit salespeople now. I don't go on Indeed. I don't go on Monster or Career Builder because I am looking for specific types of salespeople who have specific types of experience that I am looking for my hiring managers. So, and it's a whole search, and I'm not going to get into the details of that because it would just be very boring. But what I would say is it's always helpful to have what you do on your LinkedIn profile. It does not have to double as a resume. And I always say, well, LinkedIn is not a resume, but essentially it is. And that's how a lot of hiring managers and recruiters see it now. When I'm presenting a candidate, managers want to see their LinkedIn profile, and they love, and I'm speaking from a sales perspective, salespeople should brag about themselves. One thing that always baffles me when I look at a salesperson's resume, why don't they have their accomplishments on there? Why don't they have on their resume, I was 130% over plan. I went to President's Club. I closed $1.5 million in sales. Like, put all of that on your LinkedIn. Definitely have that on your resume. So I'll give you a great example. Some of the keywords I'm looking for when I'm sourcing currently: cloud, cybersecurity. So that's what's going to come up in my searches and it's very industry specific. But I will say this, if you are more entry level or you're looking to change industries or pivot or get into sales, the best way for you to use LinkedIn is to connect with recruiters. Now, this is a hot tip. Don't just contact a recruiter out of the blue and say, hi, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? Please don't do that. Recruiters don't like when you do that at all. But one thing you could do, see if the recruiter is a sales recruiter. Organizations are very siloed now. And what I mean by that, I used to recruit for everything, but now organizations have their sales recruiters, they have their technical recruiters, and they have their just general go-to-market recruiters, which sales sometimes falls in that category. But see what someone does. And if you see that they are a sales recruiter, then great, contact them. I'll be honest, not all sales recruiters are going to respond, or not all recruiters, excuse me, are going to respond to you. But some, like me, I'm friendly. I'll respond to people. I'll tell them, thank you for contacting me. This is what I recruit for. And if you're nice about it, if your approach is polite, I might point you in the right direction. But if someone has a sense of arrogance, yeah, I'm looking for a job and I'm on the market right now, and just assume that I'm here to help them as if I work for them, I'm not as receptive.
That's understandable. I think anybody would say that,
Yeah. And I get a lot of interesting messages on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well,
but
salespeople are a different breed, so
yes,
you
they
will
are.
have the arrogant salespeople. Yeah.
Absolutely. But this is what I'll say. content is important. Not everyone is prolific. Not everyone just wants to write things, but if it's something that you enjoy doing and you feel you have something to say, pick your topic. If you want to write about sales, if you want to write about DE&I, if you want to write about what you see, the treatment of Black people in the workplace and how it can improve, whatever it is that you feel is appropriate and you want to talk about on LinkedIn, I'd say go for that, because a lot of times that will get you attention. If you're like, hey, I'm trying to get into sales, these are the industries I'm interested in. Hey, can someone help me out? You just never know. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an algorithm expert because I'm not. But I have found that if you have a community around you, that's a great start. But yeah, I would say just spruce up your LinkedIn profile. That's the best way to get attention from different people, network. And I'm going to drop my LinkedIn profile in there. If anyone would like to connect with me, I'm more than happy to. And, answer questions to the best of my knowledge.
That would be great. And while you're doing that, oh, you put it to host and panelists. If
Oh,
you're
sorry.
Yeah, hit the drop down and send it to
Let me
everybody.
try that.
While you're doing that, Joy and I know each other through an organization called Sisters in Sales. It's a fabulous organization. It is for women of color, even though there are men that are involved in this organization too. And they specifically focus on helping women of color get into sales positions, get promoted, navigate sales organizations, things like that. So they're having their 5th annual summit in September 2022. I've been to a couple of them before. They are fabulous. They have all sorts of big companies that they work with. They will have people who are attending the conference who are actively hiring people. And again, these are organizations that want to recruit from within the community. So it's run by a woman named Chantel George. She's fabulous. And the community is really great. Not only do they have the summit, but they have like all sorts of webinars you can belong to. They have a Slack channel. And, sometimes like with any other industry, there's some politics that goes within sales as well. So I really liked it because they really did talk about, sister to sister, how you navigate through some of the politics and some of the organizations that you're in, so, or that you could be in. So again, Sisters in Sales. I will also ask Joy of any other networking organizations that people should consider, books, courses, anything like that that people should consider. And you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. So I will share my screen for a second. Here's a book that I've been reading. I think it is very informative. It's by Cynthia Barnes, and I don't know how that happened. Please excuse me. Here we go. This is just, it's a quick read. I would encourage everyone to grab this book. And also there is another organization that I would encourage. Let's see. I apologize, everyone. This is not.
Okay.
Hopefully you can edit this part.
I will try.
Sorry about that. That was not what I was trying to do. Oh my goodness. But let's see, there was another thing that I wanted to share as well. Along with Sisters in Sales, I would highly recommend, and I'm sure you are aware of Sherilyn Castleman.
Yes.
Yeah, she's another one I would recommend connecting with as well, too.
Yeah, she's a sales coach and she
Yes.
teaches people how to become better at sales
Mhm.
in order to make more commissions, you know.
And there's another women's group too that
Mhm.
I'm gonna just drop the link in the chat if that's
Okay.
okay. Um, but I think it's definitely something that could help, you know, is helpful just just based on wherever you are in your journey.
Yeah.
All right. It's Women in Sales Club.
Perfect.
So yeah, there's, I know one GB, she works at Gong, I believe. I believe she's still with Gong. If she's not there, she's working at another company in tech, but
Okay.
she's definitely another person who, someone to get in touch with as well.
Great. Great. I will say also another option for people with regards to training that I like is Jordan Belfort. Originally the Wolf of Wall Street. That was the movie that
Yes.
Leonardo DiCaprio was on. But
Yeah.
he's actually a really good trainer and
Hmm.
he has probably hundreds of free videos on YouTube. His course is a little pricey, but once you start making money in sales, you probably may want to take that as well. But he has this thing called Sales School on YouTube, and it's this whole playlist, and it's, it gives you really great, like quick 5 to 10 minute nuggets of
Hmm.
things that you can do in order to become better at sales. So I like that as well. So with that, do you have anything else, Joy, before we leave the evening?
There's something else that's called Challenger. You're probably familiar
Yes.
with that as well.
Yes,
I'm
I
sure
am.
some of
I've
the,
never taken it, but
yeah,
yeah, I've heard good things about it.
yeah. So, but yeah, that's it. I just want to
Okay.
thank you for this opportunity. This has been great. So,
Thank you so much. It's been a dream of mine to do, a sales, interview somebody in sales and get more of our people involved in sales because, every company needs a salesperson. So once you become really good, you will have companies consistently coming to you asking you, hey, you're looking for something new? Hey, we're looking for new reps. And, unlike other industries where you have to beg people, sales is when, once you're really good, people start coming to you often.
well, yeah, and I would, the company I'm currently with, the positions I'm recruiting for, they're very niche, I would say, in some ways. But I will say this, I I'm more than happy if I can to point those in the right direction. So
Mhm.
please feel free to connect with me. I'm a recruiter, so I know other recruiter. Then I have a
Yeah.
passion for recruiting. So it's like, if you're like, oh, I'm looking for this, well, I can't help you, but this person can, or I know of this opportunity. So I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to help where I can. So
Yeah.
I
I will
would,
say one more thing, and that
mhm,
is invest in a LinkedIn coach and a resume writer. If
yes.
there's any kind of investment you can do, because the algorithms, people need to be able to find you. And then
Mhm.
once they find you, they need to be able to read something that screams to them, I've got to get in touch with this person. So if there's any investment that I would suggest for people, it is, to invest in this. And because you mentioned the whole entrepreneurial thing, depending on how your contract is set up, there may be opportunities for you to have like tax deductions for certain types of continuing education, or you could
Absolutely.
get your employer to pay for
Yes.
certain things. You could have a budget for that. So we didn't even
Absolutely.
get into some of the negotiations that people may want to think about doing during the salary
Yes,
negotiation process, but
that
some of the
that's
perks can be
another.
really good. Some, I know a woman with State Farm. She's been at the top President's Club for many years. They go to exotic places. She's like, I'm sick of traveling, but they go to exotic places. Like, some of these companies have really good packages for their
Yeah.
top salespeople.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as I mentioned before, I am an education advocate, and my employer of 10 years, they paid for me to finish my education. So yes, if you can find someone to pay for your education,
Mhm.
absolutely take advantage of that if that's something you want to pursue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those benefits are out there.
Yes. Well, Joy, thank you so much for agreeing to come
Sure.
tonight. Bless
You.
us with your information. Everybody, at least link in with Joy so
Uh,
that you all can stay
yeah.
connected. And Joy, I hope that you will not be a stranger. Maybe next year we'll invite you back.
Thank
As we
you
have new
so
people
much.
coming into the 10K project, we'd love for you to educate them as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Have a wonderful evening,
All
everyone.
right, you too. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody. Good night.
Bye.